Good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you here today. My name is Miles Fahlman, and I am a medical anthropologist and a medical anthropology researcher. And today I'd like to give you a bit of a presentation on the anthropology of SARS-CoV, something that I've studied for 5 years, and I've continued on into researching into SARS-CoV2, also known as COVID-19 and HCoV19, human coronavirus 19. I guess I would start with this picture on the first page here. A lot of my research was done in Hanoi, Vietnam, 12 years after the original outbreak. I interviewed the doctors, dentists, virologists, epidemiologists, all at the center of the original SARS outbreak, the original coronavirus outbreak. I did that in 2014 and 2015, and have recently published the research in March of 2019, and that brings us to present day. I'd like to begin here just with a little chat about the SARS-CoV virus, and then I'll move into SARS-CoV2. The original SARS-CoV, the first SARS virus mutated into the human population in November of 2002 in a Chinese province. And I was in Hanoi, Vietnam at that time. And the SARS outbreak percolated in China in 2002. And it wasn't until February of 2003 when a traveler from China flew into Vietnam. And it was an acquaintance of mine, Dr. Carlo Urbani, an Italian doctor for the WHO, who diagnosed the first atypical pneumonia. And when he first saw it, he knew something was terribly wrong. He was seeing healthcare workers who were infected and their lungs would fill with edema in a single afternoon. And so he knew something was terribly wrong. Dr. Urbani subsequently issued the global alerts through the WHO network and succumbed to the disease. It'll be this Sunday, March 29th. 2020 will be 17 years since he's passed away. But what he had done to convince the Vietnamese government to act, the isolation, quarantine, patient tracing, these are all things that he initiated right when he saw the virus, had no lab tests, no medical response. And he began the original social response to SARS-CoV. So we fast forward to 2020, and now this same coronavirus has mutated again, SARS-CoV-2. But the takeaway from SARS-CoV is the value of this early detection, case finding, patient tracing, quarantining, and testing, shelter in place. These types of things are excellent responses to the disease, but with the inability of the Wuhan government to act effectively, this virus has gone global. I think we're at hundreds of thousands of infections now, and this is a new beast. From the science, the zoonosis that we understand, virologists, epidemiologists, they've always thought that this was coming again. And I'd like to be clear that, seeing SARS-CoV and SARS-CoV-2 and having studied them so deeply on a scientific level and a social level, this is an alarmist. These viruses are here to stay. I believe it's Nathan Wolfe, a virologist, says that humankind and Dr. Singer as well, Meryl Singer's his name, these gentlemen are deeply understand virology and anthropology, and they're saying that these viruses are here to stay. Humanity moves forward with pandemics. So that's an important point. Another important point is the fact that we're without a biomedical response for months into the future, if not years into the future. There's still no vaccine for the original SARS-CoV from 2002. There's no vaccine for MERS in 2012, Middle East respiratory virus, and it looks from the science that we're seeing from the genome sequencing, we can trace SARS-CoV2 back into the natural environment as a virus that was making animals sick, that's mutated into the human system, and this spillover, or zoonosis as it's called, moved into the human system. Our response is only a social response. So I'd like to focus this presentation on that social response and see if we can't refine the way we respond. And as a society, my final point on this slide is that as a society, we can navigate the social contours of contagions. So I'm walking a bit of a fine line there, but the social contours might be navigating the hotspots of the virus. So we can identify the hotspots of these viruses and perhaps the communities that they're in. There might be a way for those of us outside those hotspots to stay healthy and to continue to interact and perhaps reduce the socioeconomic impact of these pandemics, being that we're assuming they're with us to stay. So our current social response, as you probably well know, includes sheltering in place, physical distancing. And one important point that I think is missed out a little bit is this idea of social solidarity. In my study in Vietnam, we found that the social solidarity of the Vietnamese, a culture and a society, if you know Vietnam really well, you know that they've been at war for 3,000 years. That builds a certain social conscience that is carried forward in time, of course. Patriotism, the ability to work together, social solidarity, resilience. We analyzed the language in our research very carefully of the people that fought against the disease, and the language of war and language of social solidarity is dominant. So I think this is an important thing for us to realize, is that it's social solidarity that's going to help us to follow the public health guidelines, to respond together. If we look at East versus West, which is a classic analysis in sociology, we understand the value of the individual that's placed on the West, and I think that's an area that we need to look at. That's an area that we need to analyze, this individual aspect of the West. Does that strengthen us, or does that weaken us in the face of a unified social response? That's a very important question. And how can we find a social response as our global economy grinds to a halt? We're living together with these viruses. We are establishing that. How can we change the way we respond? As we transition our lives into this new online environment, maybe there are some answers here online. Having science of the health feed into our social response, guided by an online social profile that lets us interact at a distance and predict social safety. I think the idea is out there to harness this social profile and perhaps use the advantage of individuals. I have a question, frankly, why aren't we social identify for each of us everything from disease testing, whether we've been tested for the disease, to lifestyle tendencies, and better identify low and high risk social settings, and while respecting these aspects of disease. And these social profiles for social response. And there's a chance that utilizing social profiles could help us stay ahead of this phrase that you've all heard, flattening the curve of infections. We know things like case finding, patient tracing are critical social records to help us navigate the contours and hotspots of the disease to break transmission. You'll hear Dr. Michael Ryan, WHO, speaking above. It's cost effective and critically important social record, this patient tracing. These are things past, And I think what we're looking for is, in our HCoV event today, we're looking for some refinement for things in the future. Looking back as well, drawing on the history, a good example is the Spanish flu, where there were no class 4 labs. It happened around 1918, yet the virus was defeated via social intervention and response. So we know, that's just highlighting the social aspect of this disease. And at the same time, maybe it's time for us to look forward. And this final point on this page, I think, is a very interesting one for everyone. We need to understand the genome and humans themselves. We're the largest homologous mass of genetic material on the planet. What does that mean? That means that we are more than a huge nutritious target for viruses. We're the perfect conduit for viruses. As I say here, a perfect biological environment for proliferation of viruses. So I think that's important to understand. We need to understand ourselves as a target and move forward with that in mind to address the science and the social aspects of diseases of these pandemics. And so I'd like to point out here, this is a very clear diagram from a virologist from Australia, Dr. Ian McKay. He runs a website called Virology Down Under, a very good source of clear, simple scientific information that helps us to build a platform to address pandemics, to address infectious diseases. So here, at this representation, we have the infection here, we have the asymptomatic incubation period here, and we have the symptomatic period. So if we go back to SARS in 2002, this symptomatic period here was when most infections were being transmitted. SARS-CoV2 has offered us something different now. As if you look at this red arrow here, you'll see that this is the infectious period and it lags back into the asymptomatic, sorry. So what that means is people are spreading the disease without knowing they have the disease. And we call the pre-symptomatic but infectious period. It's this area here that's very dangerous scientifically because, of course, people don't know they have it, but they're spreading it. And what I think that unlocks for us is it pushes us to understand the social importance of this disease. It's asymptomatic. We have no biomedical or scientific response to the disease currently. So we have to look at a social response to this based on the asymptomatic period where transmission is happening. I think that sort of sets us up for addressing this disease, most importantly, with social response, and taking the social responses happening currently and perhaps refining them. So we can navigate this SARS-CoV pandemic and prepare for the next one with a social profile-led disease response to refine that social response. I think we'll be much more prepared for the next pandemic. So I think it's very important to refine social response as it exists, and the primary reason for that is the economic fallout from pandemics. We can see that we're putting the world into a very difficult situation now of making massive monetary decisions, each country, and we're not through with this yet. It's ongoing. So, I'm very happy to be invited to the HCoV event today. I'd like to thank Paul and Jessica, and also open up the floor if folks are interested in cooperating, modeling epidemic response, modeling scientific response, developing more things along the lines of responding socially and refining social response. I'd love to hear from you. So I've put here my academia.edu address and my email address. Welcome to communicate anytime on any of these aspects. And great. Again, thanks very much for your time today. I hope you have a fantastic event. I think I've said this, there is this intersectionality of a variety scientific and anthropological, sociological approaches, combining epidemiology and virology. It's this intersectional approach that's going to be successful here. So I invite all of you, if you're interested in any form of cooperation, I'm definitely open to it. And thanks very much for your time. And have a great day. I'll sign here from Canada and hopefully join you in your event very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.